Welcome, everyone, to another episode of CPAC Live. We have a great show in store for you today. We're going to be joined by one of our board members and one of the president's pollsters, Jim McLaughlin, who has been advising conservatives. Literally, he's not going to like me saying this, for decades in primaries, and to great effect, and someone who I've had the great privilege of working with personally, and the president is really lucky to have him on his team. And we're going to be joined by Rik Mehta, someone Jim knows well, who's running for the Senate in New Jersey. And, you know, these Senate and House races are very interesting this cycle because, once again, there's a real effort to try to show that Schumer's definitely picking up the majority in the Senate and that there's not even a chance that the House Republicans could sneak up on Nancy Pelosi. I'm telling you, folks, watch these races, especially these House races. You're going to see that Nancy Pelosi is going to start to get very nervous as everyone starts to realize all the Trump Republicans have to do is win in Trump districts. And he's going to win in the same type of districts he won in last time that Republicans underperformed in 2018. So to get it all started, we're joined by Jim McLaughlin, who, I'm going to get this title right, a Republican Trump campaign pollster. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great to be here, Matt.
So we've known each other for like way too long, and we have a little bit of a mind meld when it comes to what the role of government should be in our lives and our support for President Trump. You and I were just chit-chatting about how there's a real effort in the national news media, which is over 90% just like relentlessly negative coverage of Donald Trump. And then they spew out, the fake news spews out a lot of fake polls. Give us an idea of an overview why a lot of these polls should be discounted.
Yeah, and it's a great point, Matt, because I look back to 4 years ago in 2016. Remember, there was no way Donald Trump could win. I remember, I think it was about a week out, the New York Times was saying 92% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to be president. On election day, they were saying it was an 85% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to be president. I thought it was just incompetence. And what you had was, at the national level, they were saying, that Hillary Clinton was up by double digits. And in these state polls were just as bad. Places like Michigan and places like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, the famed blue wall, you know, they gave Hillary Clinton huge leads. The first thing they do is these polls of just adults and registered voters, they're not applicable. They need to talk to likely voters. The other thing they do is they literally, and again, I thought a lot of it.
Hey, Jim, can I stop you right there? Sure. What percentage of registered voters in battleground states voted in 2016?
That's a good point. It was a little over 60% that voted. And I think it's going to be higher this time. But out of all voters, and that doesn't even take into account adults, you know, you've got a lot more adults. But when you look at it, it was in the high, I think it was around the mid-60s in terms of people that actually voted during the presidential election. Now, I think it will be higher this time. But to go to your point, they're putting a lot of people into these surveys that aren't necessarily going to vote.
Yeah, so if you have 40% or 35% of registered voters who are not going to vote, yet they are in the samples for these polls, you can discount them on that point immediately.
Exactly right. And what we've seen, and hopefully this isn't too far in the weeds, what we've seen is among their groups of independents, among those registered voters, they tend to favor the Democrats over the Republicans.
And in reality, with the numbers you've been tracking throughout the kind of this Trump era, how has Trump performed with independents?
Yep. There was recently a survey that just came out the end of last week after the Republican convention, the CBS YouGov poll, and that was likely voters, had the president up by 10 points with independents. He won 4 years ago with those independents. And probably the classic example of looking at it are these Quinnipiac polls. I remember right before Election Day in 2018, down in Florida, I was working on Rick Scott's Super PAC. And Quinnipiac poll comes out, and it's got Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis both losing by 7%. So everybody's freaking out. And, you know, what's wrong with the poll? You get the poll back. first of all, they've undersampled Republicans by 7 points. The survey is +7 Democrat. That's just not Florida. That's not what happens in statewide elections. Plus, they had both the Republican candidates down by double digits with independents. That's not what happened. They actually won independents on election day. That's why they won the election. So we see this bias. It's not just in their media coverage, but it's in their polls. It's really unbelievable. And the point I was going to make before was I thought a lot of it was just incompetence 4 years ago. Now I think a lot of it is purposeful.
Yeah, and it's the desire is to make Trump supporters and conservatives believe that there's no chance. There's no reason to write a check. There's no reason to get out there and drop lit or put up signs. And finally, there's no reason to even worry about voting because you can't win. It's this inevitable argument that the Democrats put out there.
And Matt, your point is 100% correct. It's their form of voter suppression. That's right. What they're doing. They're trying to tell Republicans Trump can't win. Your local candidate for Congress can't win. Your U.S. Senate candidate can't win. We're going to make Pelosi Speaker of the House. Chuck Schumer is going to be the majority leader. And Joe Biden's going to be president. So there's no need to turn out.
So, Jim, when we all left the White House, when the president gave his acceptance speech on the South Lawn, and there was this incredible Black Lives Matter Antifa effort to intimidate these Republicans, to go after folks that are physically vulnerable. There was a lot of people there kind of in the older ages. And, that is the most disgusting form of voter suppression and a desire to intimidate the nucleus of the Republican Party on the street as they just try to walk to their cars or get into their Ubers. That's purposeful, right, Jim?
Without a doubt. And you know what the amazing part about it is? Yes, we're seeing those kinds of things that go on with CPAC Live. You guys are talking about it. Fox News is talking about it, conservative talk radio. The mainstream media has basically ignored it. I believe neither ABC or NBC has covered it at all. That was a dangerous, dangerous situation. And again, it's part of the radical left calculus in their strategy right now to win this election is to intimidate Republicans.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you've seen these tactics because you also are the pollster. As I said, you're a board member of the ACU, which puts on CPAC. We do this annual CPAC straw poll, and you can really see where conservatives are. I want to ask you a question about what I said over the weekend on the circus that I believe are the two most interesting swing constituencies, what I consider swing constituencies, which other people might not consider, which is number one, African American voters. I think the president showed a clear improvement that Romney, McCain, Bush never got a clear improvement into the double digits with African American voters, including men and women. Women, because they understand that keeping law and order in their communities is good for their families. And they love the idea of criminal justice reform, what's going on with these pardons. I think African American men, for those reasons and other reasons, like the idea of having this strong leader. And then I also think Catholics, the exit polls, I don't know if we can believe them, show us that Donald Trump got 52% of Catholic support last time. That's both go-to-church Catholics and more cultural Catholics. He's running against someone who's a member of a Catholic parish. If he can win Catholics again and up this African-American vote, is he a cinch for re-election?
Without a doubt. And you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. Catholics are the ultimate of the American dream, the middle class, that working middle class. And that's one of the reasons why Mitt Romney lost, was because he lost Catholic voters to Barack Obama. They've connected with this president. And there's a lot, believe it or not, there's a lot of these issues where Catholics are voting and also African Americans. And the president has known all along, if he gets double digits of African Americans, it makes it almost impossible for Joe Biden to win. And that's what he was showing last time, is his record of success among African Americans. You've seen some polls out there. There was a Rasmussen poll where his job approval rating was in the high 30s among African Americans, because they remember before the pandemic what he was doing for them. We had record low unemployment among African Americans, record low unemployment among women, record low unemployment among Hispanic voters. And what you're seeing is a lot of middle to upper income African Americans really responding to his message. And also suburban African American voters, because they already left Bill de Blasio's New York, and they don't want Joe Biden turning our suburbs into places like New York City.
Do you buy this? The Gallup recently came out with a poll that showed that 25% of African Americans would self-describe themselves as conservative. That kind of took me aback. That probably also includes a lot of social conservative voters in the African American community.
And we've seen that for a long time. And also, there's a lot of Hispanic voters that also describe themselves as conservative. Why? They're regular churchgoers. They are pro-life. They are also pro-family in many ways. And I've seen some surveys, believe it or not, where more than that among African Americans are calling themselves conservative. And they don't like this radical leftist tilt of the Democratic Party. That's why you saw so many African Americans supporting Donald Trump at the convention. And something that's underrated, and the press doesn't want to talk about this, we have a lot of great African American candidates running across the country. Look at John James, who was at CPAC. Survey came out last week. John James is actually, they have him ahead in Michigan right now.
Yeah, against the senator none of us have ever heard of, including the voters of Michigan. I think that's a real advantage for John James, running against a ghost of a candidate who never does anything.
And by the way, this feeds into the conversation we were having. Is, how we're told there's no way Donald Trump can win Michigan? You know how Donald Trump can win Michigan again? Is because Gary Peters, the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, he's got Donald Trump in his ads. Why would a Democrat running for U.S. Senate have Donald Trump in his ads? Because
I'll tell you why.
Yep.
Can I tell you why I think it is? This Trump derangement syndrome is real, right? Like, they think that their ticket to victory is Trump hate. And you and I have been through this before. In 2004, we forget the last time there was a Republican president running for re-election, the left hated George Bush so much that they were banking on the fact that even a windsurfer who spoke French, like John Kerry, who wanted to give Iran nuclear weapons eventually, even he would win the presidency because there was such an animosity towards Bush. And there was a truth. He had weak approvals. The difference is Trump actually has strong approvals, and he's unified Republicans. But if you love your candidate and you're enthusiastic about your candidate, doesn't that always trump the hate the other side feels for your candidate?
Intensity is hugely important, and that's one of the problems that Joe Biden has. And it's one of the reasons why I tell folks the reason he gave the nomination to Kamala Harris wasn't out of strength. It was out of weakness, because he's trying to build that Obama coalition. Obama had a lot of support among millennials, African Americans, and Hispanics. He doesn't have that. So that's why he had to double down, and he had to pick a San Francisco liberal to be his running mate. And to go to your point, most voters will tell you they're not voting for Joe Biden. The ones that are voting for him, they're voting against Donald Trump. Whereas about 3/4 of Donald Trump's voters will tell you they're voting because they support him and they agree with him on the issues.
What, Jim, what percentage of those who actually turn out to vote, and you've already said that you think the turnout will be higher than it was in 2016, although you can't know for sure, right? You're using your experience, and you're monitoring intensity levels among voters to see what that turnout could be. What percentage of people do you think are still truly undecided, maybe including leaners?
It's a great question. Look, I think there's still probably, you include the leaners now, I'd say it's probably about close to 1 out of 5 voters, believe it or not. But I would say in terms of true undecided, it's about 10 to 12% right now. And
so that's 10 to 12%. Would you say, Jim, in that subsection, do they have a higher favorability towards Donald Trump or a higher favorability toward Joe Biden?
Both of them right now are still, they have firm opinions when it comes to Donald Trump right now. They overwhelmingly agree with Donald Trump on the issues. And that's what's going on right now is those voters, it's about 80-20 in terms of the actual issues that matter most, like whether it comes to the economy, immigration, even dealing with the coronavirus. They are more likely to agree with Donald Trump than when it comes to Joe Biden right now. And look, you really have almost two incumbents because Joe Biden has been on the scene for 47 years. So you're going to see, like last time, that was one of the mistakes I thought that, the folks in the media were making. They didn't realize there weren't a lot of undecideds in 2016, but the vast majority of them were going to vote for Donald Trump because they knew Hillary Clinton and they didn't like her. This time, those undecideds really are in many ways, because it's almost a race of two incumbents, are up for grabs.
That's interesting. This whole question about the riots going on across the country, we've talked a lot about it. I saw it, Mercy and I saw it as we were leaving the White House. We happened to get on an RNC bus with Pam Bondi and her husband, and we were relatively safe, but the people teeming around the buses, It was a frightening scene. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't there with my kids because the language and the single finger salutes, etc. If we had been on the street walking, I would have been very fearful for the situation. It seems like this issue of being anti-cop, embracing the radical agenda of Black Lives Matter Incorporated itself, its numbers are plummeting. And as people get to see what they're all about and what their tactics are all about, and that it's really not about helping Black people, it's more about having an American revolution, literally toppling the government. What do you think is the upshot of this, and is that why Biden out of nowhere has come out of the basement? Actually, I think he stayed in the basement to tape some soft rebukes to, like, we shouldn't murder kids in the streets of Chicago.
He looks weak and he looks ineffective, and now he looks like a political opportunist. Because where has he been the last 3 or 4 months while these, and look, we are all for peaceful protesting. That is great. That is wonderful. That is the American way. That's what we do. We all know what Antifa has been doing, what Black Lives Matter has been doing in places like Portland, Seattle, New York City. That's not peaceful protesting. That's rioting, that's looting, it's intimidation, it's violence. And he's too late to the party right now. He should be apologizing for what happened the other night after the RNC convention. But you know what? We're all going to get through that. He should be apologizing to the American people about what's going on in our inner cities. The one thing that should not be a partisan issue. He should have been out there early on calling for the violence to stop. He hasn't done it. And this whole basement and the Biden in the basement strategy, it is unbelievable, and it's an insult to the American people.
Well, we're going to show a clip of Kamala Harris actually saying the opposite of Joe Biden, which I always love in a campaign. It shows how one part of the ticket isn't talking to the other part of the ticket, as they're both in separate basements. You wonder if the staffs are talking to each other. But while he's trying to soften up this idea that actually maybe we're against these murders and arsons and looting, she's saying it's a just cause and it ought to continue happening. It's a strange juxtaposition. And like I said, I think what's happening on these sets of issues, and my final question before I let you go, Jim, is cops, law enforcement. The Democrats have largely owned this idea of getting cop unions big contracts, a lot of ethnic voters. Cops are very diverse racially. This has been a constituency that Democrats courted, and they have just, like they have religious Jews, seem to have just chucked them aside and said, we think you're racist, we think you're deplorable. Is this going to have an impact on these voters who love a cop?
I don't think there's any question of that. And look, I was born in the Bronx. Both my grandfathers were New York City detectives. And when you look at what's going on, and people forget, a lot of these police unions have supported the Democrats over the years.
Oh, yes.
Now you've got, the state troopers in New York, which were basically, a lot of people thought, hey, they were big Andrew Cuomo supporters. they just came out and endorsed President Trump along with the PBA, Pat Lynch in New York. Again, in many cases they've supported Democrats, and it says to those forgotten men and women out there, we're not for law enforcement from the Democrats. What we're saying is President Trump, he's the one that's going to keep us safe in our neighborhoods. And I think it's going to be a big, big issue from now until Election Day. And I think it's going to help President Trump with African Americans, with Hispanics, and also a lot of working class Democrats.
I think Joe Biden unintentionally, because I view these riots as almost a part of his ground game, which is why they were quiet. There's a reason they were quiet. I view Joe Biden as having created a whole new section of voters, a swing constituency in this election, law enforcement moms. Let's track it, Jim. If you love somebody in law enforcement, not even just a family member or a spouse, but you just think that thin blue line stands between you and terrible crimes, then I think that's a new subsection of voters.
No doubt about it. Remember, we had the security moms after September 11th, and I think you're exactly right. We're getting law enforcement moms now because they want their kids to be safe. They want them to be safe in the community. They want them to be safe in school.
Yep, that's right. Jim McLaughlin, you do a great job. Thank you for your service to the president's reelection campaign. Thank you for your service to ACU and for the straw poll every year at CPAC. And we are going to have CPAC. And Jim, I want to just ask you this question. You might not have seen it on Twitter yet, but we got these great new yard signs and bumper stickers. It's called America versus Socialism, which was our theme of this year's CPAC. I'm going to urge you today, order some and pass them around New Jersey.
I love them, and you will be amazed how many signs will be up in New York and New Jersey. And by the way, I saw them on social media. That is exactly what this election is about. And it's one of the reasons, by the way, President Trump is doing so well with Hispanics, as you well know. It's America versus socialism.
Yeah, if you fled socialism, you don't want that socialism to follow you here. And the other implicit message in this is, folks, if you have some small little thing that you don't like about Donald Trump, understand this. It's much bigger than these two men. It's about what kind of country you're going to have. And that's one of the reasons we did the yard sign.
Yep. Oh, it's terrific. And literally, you're exactly right. And the president understands this. He's literally in this election. It's no question. It's about making America great again. But he's literally defending the American way of life, the America as we know it. Because just what you pointed out before, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, they want to turn this into a socialist communist country. And the more people that understand that, the better we're going to do on Election Day.
Go to conservative.org and order your shirts, order your bumper stickers, order your yard signs, and put them up proudly. I have one on my front lawn. My house has not been burned down yet. I'll keep you posted to see if there's any hooligans in the area. Thank you, Jim. We're going to be right back after this video of our Democratic nominee for the vice president, Kamala Harris, urging the rioters to never stop.
I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not.
So Kamala Harris, somewhat discordant with the message coming out of Joe Biden's part of the campaign. You can always tell when a campaign isn't well coordinated, when a ticket has one person saying one thing and the other person saying another. But I think what Kamala Harris is saying about these riots and violence around the country, we all need to pay attention to, because those rioters and that violence, they're listening to these national leaders. And she's clearly pointing to the fact that they are to not stand down and to not stop. And the sad part of that is, with more violence comes more Americans harmed and killed, which we've seen all across the country, which I know we all mourn and we find to be a grave tragedy. I'm now joined on CPAC Live by Rik Mehta. Rik is running for the Senate in the state of New Jersey, a state I used to live in, running against Cory Booker, who I'm still trying to figure out what Cory Booker is actually getting done in the United States Senate. Rik, thanks for joining us on CPAC Live.
Morning, Matt. Thanks for having me.
What is Cory Booker up to besides, I know he tortured Brett Kavanaugh and accused him of going to high school orgies. Beyond that, I've kind of lost track of how he's relevant.
Oh, it's so disappointing, Matt. Cory Booker's nowhere to be found. I mean, with COVID, you see the number of cases of people that we've lost in our nursing homes and long-term care facilities, and he's nowhere to be found. Our small businesses here in New Jersey continue to get crushed. And remember, last year he missed more than 65% of the vote. So what exactly is he doing? Probably around house shopping, I heard, in Hollywood with his Hollywood girlfriend. So people in New Jersey are really tired of it.
So he ran for president, and he didn't get very far, did he?
No, he didn't. He forsake New Jersey. He went far left. He actually is very hypocritical in terms of what he said he would stand for and then what he ended up representing. A complete failure. And you're right. He polled less than 4% in the presidential polls and then came running back to New Jersey. New Jersey said, you know what? You keep him. We don't want him.
So New Jersey is not an easy state for Republicans to win in statewide. Why do you think the setup is different in 2020?
Well, I'll tell you, while we do have more Democrats registered than Republicans, there's a lot more conservatives all throughout the state. You have more than 2 million unaffiliated voters, and they vote with their heart, Matt. They're looking for someone who's going to go to Washington and represent family values. As I said, a lot of people aren't necessarily involved or entrenched in the political process. They just want to raise a family. They want safe and secure communities. They want to be able to go to church. In New Jersey, you could go to the liquor stores, but you couldn't even go to your place of worship. All right, and even right now, the gyms have been closed. The restaurant industry has been completely decimated. People don't want a dictator. They feel it. When you can't bring home a paycheck to feed your family, that's when they know something's amiss, something is wrong, and people are starting to step up. So it's not necessarily a blue state. People are saying, we're a state of family values. We're a state of community. When 1/3 of us are immigrants and many of us have come from somewhere else, and they're giving more to those that break the law than those that follow it, people are tired of the disingenuous showboating that our elected officials have given us. And it's not just Cory Booker, it's our governor, and it's the other U.S. Senator, Bob Menendez, too. We have a one-party control, and people are tired of it.
What are the governor's numbers? Most of us with clear eyes looked at what New York and New Jersey did, and although it's a terrible tragedy that the virus really hit those communities first, but the governors exacerbated an already bad situation. Are the voters in New Jersey disappointed with the leadership they've gotten from Governor Murphy, who literally believes that shutting down churches is going to somehow cure this virus?
Absolutely. And that's the problem. So, Matt, I'm a former public health expert and executive. I ran a health department that oversaw all health inspection enforcement of every hospital, nursing home, long-term care facility. Under my watch, this would have never happened. And it's for one simple, basic public health policy. It's that you come prepared with a risk mitigation plan. And we see Governor Murphy continues to make decisions through executive order and then asked his health officials to find the science to support it. And that's a big mistake, So, yeah, people are completely disappointed with that. When you see that New Jersey has the highest mortality rate than any other state, and he continues to have everything shut down. There was never a plan in place. And now our economy is completely decimated. And also, let's not forget the other public health issues that he seems to neglect. The incident rates of opioid addiction, abuse, and use has gone up. There's been no talk about it. Suicide rates have gone up. There's been no talk about it. Mental health issues has gone up, and there's been no discussion whatsoever from this governor or from Cory Booker here in the state.
And how do the Democrats, if Joe Biden were to be elected president and people like Cory Booker, which I hope doesn't happen, I trust you're going to make sure doesn't happen, get returned to the Senate, they've all said that what they're going to do is put all the Obama-era regulations, including on health care, but on American energy, and they're going to throttle back American investment because of these regulations. How is it possible that they can say that on one side of their mouth and on the other side of the mouth say that we're going to bring the economy back? Won't the economy be destroyed for a very long period of time if all of these socialist Obama-era regulations are put back on the economy, the regulations Trump took off?
This is the problem. And let me tell you something about New Jersey. New Jersey has the highest outmigration than any other state. 44% of people in New Jersey want to move out. And that's devastating when you want to focus on generational wealth and establishing your future of opportunities for your children. So one thing about me is I'm a former regulatory attorney as well and a law professor at Georgetown. I can tell you right now that the amount of regulations continue to marginalize, especially minorities and others, from starting businesses, from creating opportunities. And so the Obama-Biden administration, when Biden was there, is responsible for a lot of the loss of our manufacturing jobs and many of our industry sectors right here in New Jersey. So now remember, under Obama, we had more medical manufacturing plants open in China and most of those shuttered right here in New Jersey. They outsourced, shipped, and globalized our entire industry and our entire economy. And so you can only imagine that if with Joe Biden's presidency and Cory Booker continuing his 6 more years of do nothingness, it's going to crush our families. It's going to crush our industry. You might as well just throw your jobs out the window. That's exactly what we have. And so while taxes, by the way, keep in mind, the taxes in New Jersey continue to skyrocket. Highest state, highest property taxes, highest outmigration. That's it. You know, it's a recipe for disaster. People are going to move out of the state. That's what they want. They want to continue to have control through tax-funded everything. And so basically it just affects everyone's pocketbook.
And I think that there's a real out-migration, obviously, in New York City. I don't know if you might be able to quantify it. New Jersey could pick up a lot of these folks that are fleeing the violence and dysfunction of the city, but if they're replicating the policies under Governor Murphy, they're not going to stop in New Jersey. They're going to try to find, refuge in a purple-red state. I know for my wife and I, when we see the dysfunction of cities, we worry about raising kids in that dysfunction and in that violence. Do you think this is a moment when the people of New Jersey are waking up to the fact that they have embraced some of these flawed policies?
I do. And people are starting to see that Cory Booker is more aligned with the far left, the AOCs and others that want to defund the police, want to create violence in our safe communities, and crush our economy. And so absolutely, people in New Jersey are waking up. They know that the suburbs are under threat. You know, we want safe, sane policies, ones that focus on family values. They want people who actually want to roll up their sleeves and get the job done. And all throughout, since the virus has started, Cory Booker has been nowhere to be found. You see, like I said, our small businesses continue to be decimated. I mean, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. At least here in New Jersey, they are the lifeblood for so many families that have come here looking for a better life. It truly is the American dream, just the way I've lived it. And I've been blessed, and my wife and I have been. And so he wants to take that away. And you see Governor Murphy say, the Bill of Rights is above his pay grade, which only means he's just degrading the American dream. So there's no want of protecting our constitutional rights. There's no want of individual liberties and freedoms to be able to start a business and move about the state freely. There's no plan in place. This is not about disease control. This is about population control and voter control. And that's unfortunate.
What do you think when I think of New Jersey? I think of some great professional sports teams. What do you think about the fact that politics is invading every aspect of entertainment, of hobbies, of things people used to turn to get their minds off the terrible tragedies of the news? Do you think that that's also having an effect on voters in New Jersey?
I do. And let me tell you, look, we got some really great sports teams, that represent. New Jersey is a sports mecca. And when you can't get your normal sports, and you get politics involved in something that's supposed to be apolitical, and you got athletes, kneeling during the national anthem and when the flag, and people are just turned off by that. They want to be able to watch their team. There's some patriotism involved, which watching your team and being American proud. And I think people are just kind of getting turned off and disgusted by it. And let me give you a quick example. When the COVID crisis started, Governor Murphy decided to shut down all sports activities. He actually shut down a tennis center for over 80 days. Tennis is the quintessential socially distant sport.
Sure is.
One person 15 feet, on the other side of a net, and that was too much. There's no science behind any of this. You know, we've been asking for such a long time. I said, Governor, show us the science, release the data. What basis are you making these decisions? There's got to be some basis, right? Nothing. And when we stood up against Governor Murphy, when I joined a gym,
amazing. Well, thank you for your voice. How can our CPAC community help you in this really important race in New Jersey with your attempt to defeat Cory Booker, somebody who's in kind of like the Guinness Book of Records of senators we don't like because of his disgusting slander of Brett Kavanaugh and other judicial appointees? How can we help you?
Yeah. Well, look, get in touch with our race. We're building a lot of momentum right here in New Jersey. The conservative voice is strong. And we need your help. Go to my website, go to rikfornj.com. That's RIKFORNJ.com. Donate, support. Your contributions helps me get our message out. And there are a lot of patriots out there fighting for our family values every single day in New Jersey. Don't think it's a blue state. There's many of us that want to make sure that we have safe, secure streets and protect our law enforcement officers and stand up for what we believe in. So appreciate it, Matt. rikfornj.com.
Rik Mehta, thanks for joining us on CPAC Live. Best of luck in your race and keep us posted on your great progress.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
We're going to be right back and we'll be joined by our communications director, Ian Walters, after this short clip of talking about the true voter intimidation that's going on this cycle.
Yeah, this is a very clear tactic of socialists. What they're trying to do is shame us, make us feel bad for supporting Donald Trump, and intimidate us. When we left the White House last night, it was so obvious, it was so organized, it was so well funded, it was so well branded with their Black Lives Matter t-shirts. They are trying to make the very nucleus of the Republican Party, of the conservative movement, feel uneasy about being involved in politics. People are watching that and they know it. And they want people to feel unsafe about supporting Donald Trump. They're trying to destabilize civil society. This is not the way normal people operate. Normal people who have respect have political differences, but they can still respect the other person. When I saw the expletives and the middle finger, the single finger salutes, and the words coming out of the mouths of these mostly young, white, probably privileged from elite neighborhoods and families, attacking seniors, attacking voters, I will never be lectured to again after last night from anybody on the left that says somehow we're trying to intimidate voters with our conservative philosophy. It's always the opposite. What they charge us of doing, they do. And what I tell the American people right now, stand up. This is the moment. It's America versus socialism. It's bigger than the two men on the ballot. It's about the very survival of our civilization and our country. That's what this election is about. I believe that there's enough good people in this country to save it.
Now, welcome back to CPAC Live. I've decided to wear my spectacles so my four-eyed communications director feels more at home.
Thank you so much. I feel very much at home with our depleted vision.
They're going to accuse me of racism now. I know. I just know that. I'm trying to disparage my employee.
Right now we're good. now it's not harassment.
I actually only wear these if I'm trying to read, and I was trying to read. I was trying to get the right pronunciation of your name.
You didn't wear those glasses when you were with Mark McKinnon last week for the taping of The Circus. You were sure not to wear the glasses. You look good.
I did. I thought that they were kind. They gave me a good angle. Usually on those shows, they do everything they can to make you look bad. And I do encourage everybody, I guess because I'm self-promotional, but to go to Showtime and watch this episode of The Circus where they get some insights from me, which you set up, about what's going on in the race. And the two things I brought up, which Jim McLaughlin, God, I love Jim McLaughlin. Isn't he such a great, solid pollster?
Makes me smarter.
Two things I brought up, which I really think are right. Actually, I'm going to expand it to three because these were 3 points. Watch the African-American support for Donald Trump. It's going to be much higher than any of these previous Republicans have gotten since probably Dwight Eisenhower. And also look where Catholics are in this election, both go-to-church Catholics like you and me, and Catholics that would say that they're Catholic, but they don't have much to do with a parish. Trump won both sets of those voters last time. Obviously, the go-to-church Catholics, he won with a large margin. The others, when you put them all together, he won 52% of Catholics. But he's running against somebody who's a member of a parish. That's a nice way of saying Joe Biden's telling us he's a Catholic.
Very diplomatic.
Will he be able to win those voters again? But I do think this third thing, do you love a first responder? Do you have respect for a first responder? I think that's going to be a big deal in this election. As you can see where the Democrats are, they don't care about cops.
Right. And you see that cops are retiring early.
Yep.
It is just not a great use of one's life and time to commit to that public service, the importance of being part of law enforcement anymore. Yeah. It's excessively dangerous. You've already got absurdly high suicide rates before all of this started. You really have to see some of the worst things of society. Look, you are really
you can't through 4 days of your convention embrace Black Lives Matter about every 60 minutes without embracing their number one policy goal, which is defund the cops. They want a national police force, right? Run obviously by a liberal president. They want to take this whole idea of a community-based standards for law enforcement and pull it away.
It's about programs. It's about government taking the money that goes to cops, all right, whether that's salary, whether that's buildings, whether that's the ability to patrol neighborhoods, vehicles, and keep people safe, and put it into whatever their dream wish list is that they couldn't get Pelosi to pass through the House and get through the Senate anyway.
That's right.
It's just an alternate funding program. You're, always such a positive message. I feel like I'm the negative Nelly and the cynic. I was terrified to learn what Jim McLaughlin told you at the beginning, that there's 1 out of 5, almost 20% of people that you called independents who haven't made up their mind yet, and leaners. That number seems really high to me. Is there really 1 out of 5 folks that are going to be waiting to see what happens over the next 4 weeks, 8 weeks to make a decision of?
Well, and that's just of the people who will vote, right? So he's saying of this 65% or something of the registered voters who will actually vote, I fear that a lot of people who aren't registered could vote because they're making it so lax. You don't need a driver's license.
Right.
You don't even have to have a signature match or much of one in a lot of these places. You don't have to really technically fill out your ballot because somebody else can take it from you and mail it for you and not even get a postmark on it.
That's not right.
So it's really, some of these numbers will be fuzzed up by all this criminal activity. All that really is criminal.
It's voter fraud.
Yes, that's right.
It's a crime.
If people really put the gas on voter fraud. But going back to your question, 20% of the people who vote with leaners, without leaners, people who are truly undecided, 10%. That's who we're talking to. We're talking to the 10%. What do they care about? And that's why we are at the ACU. We're implementing a program where we really talk about what's the vision of the Democratic Party these days, and it is socialism. Now, socialism usually means economics to people. It means more taxes, more regulation, more government control of economic decision making. And my guess is in that 10%, that might not be the thing that gets them.
This is cultural, Matt
Schlapp. They might say, well, rich people are already doing pretty well in America, and I'm okay with there being a social safety net. It's the idea of, do you think it's okay to rip down these statues of people who are wonderful people like Christopher Columbus and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington? Do you think it's okay to have chaos in the streets? Do you think it's okay if you're a Korean market owner that you can't open up your market? Do you think it's okay that big stores can open but small stores can't? If you're struggling with drugs and alcohol during this shutdown period of time, is it okay that you're not allowed to go to your church? Is that okay? Or you can be kept from coming into your church because only certain pews are open. This whole idea that America is a rotten place and that you can't even turn on your TV. I do the old-fashioned thing. Sorry, can't even turn it. That's a clicker. Can't even turn on your TV without being demonstrated that you're a racist. And Mercy and I went to church over the weekend, and that was the most amazing homily because the priest said something I thought was amazing, which is, how can you call this country systematically racist when we elected a black man twice?
Yeah.
What it is it's a slur on all the good people in America who like the idea of electing a person of color to be president. How can you say that we're a sexist country when Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump?
Right.
Like, even just logic. doesn't apply anymore.
We're post-truth. This is about pushing an agenda, no matter what.
Yeah.
It's not about what's reasonable, what's accurate. The media is complicit in this. That's why they're covering some events some ways and some events the other days. There was the obnoxious treatment of many of the people that attended the Thursday night speech where President Trump accepted the nomination. It was not covered, perhaps as fulsome as some of the other things that we see.
And I want people to understand, since we were kind of around it.
You were right there.
If these people were walking out of the White House, which has now been dubbed Black Lives Matter Plaza, and what basically is happening is anarchy. These were a lot of older people, some people who were walking alone, and they couldn't get into their hotels.
Tourists, essentially, people staying at the hotels downtown.
Even if they were in their hotels, the hotels had to shut their doors because the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa protesters were trying to breach the hotels. So you would walk through that mob to get to your hotel, and then the door was closed.
I say this.
That's frightening. That could have been there could have been so many bigger problems. That was a powder keg.
We're headed there.
Yeah,
we're headed there. It will be there in 2 weeks. If it's not there in 2 weeks, it'll be there in a month.
Yeah.
And I say this as a lifelong Washingtonian. I mean, it is not the city that I grew up in. It's not a city that I'm welcome in anymore. And it's heartbreaking to know that the city's gotten away from its natural residents.
You and I drove by Black Lives Matter Plaza, 16th Street,
yeah,
right by Lafayette Square, the Hay Adams, the AFL-CIO, St. John's Church. We drove by it on the way to the interview. I broke my heart. It's like a war zone.
It's not my city. It's a ghost town. It's a war zone. It's part tourist attraction for folks that want to go down there. But it sure as heck isn't the diverse and tolerant and hardworking folks that were occupying that downtown area that I grew up with.
I don't say this that often, but I really encourage you, if you like what we're doing at the ACU, to please support our work. This is critical that we redoctrinate kids and grandkids into the idea of what makes America so special. It's one of the things we do at CPAC, as you know. Half of our audience is high school and college kids, and students really do follow our work. And there are other people doing great work, but I really encourage you, if you are so distressed and so motivated, please support our work. Get one of these yard signs.
Is that in your yard right now?
It's in my yard.
Excellent.
Put this up at your house. Get this. You can get it at conservative.org.
I've got the bumper sticker version here for your laptop or for your car bumper sticker.
That's right. We have T-shirts. We have now. This is just
put it on your boat.
This is the name of the campaign that we are waging in all these battleground states to try to talk to this 10% of voters, talk to this 20% of voters.
This is what's at stake.
We're doing CPACs. Our next CPAC is going to be in Pennsylvania on
September 19th.
That's right, in
Washington, PA, just south of Pittsburgh.
And they can get the information on the website,
conservative.org.
Sign up. We're having these events, and then we're talking to these people digitally, trying to convince them why their vote is so important. But more than anything else, put this on your car, because this is what this election is all about. If we lose, if Donald Trump loses, if we lose the Senate, socialism's taking over. They're being very clear about what they want. We will never recognize this country again. We say that every 4 years, this is the most important election of our lifetime. This one really is. We've never had a Democratic Party. Barack Obama tried to soft pedal his radicalism. A lot of people were bamboozled that he'd find a third way. That's not what this is. This is not Joe Biden, but Joe Biden in association with the radicals of his party, saying they're pressing the transformation button. It's really going to happen, folks. And we all got to get out there and prevent it from happening.
Part of it is to make good conservatives like us feel that we're alone.
Yeah.
And that we don't have each other, and that we're out there on some island, and this idea that you may support President Trump or support limited government or support law and order in our streets, that somehow you're outside the mainstream. Well, you put this on your car, you put that yard sign in your yard, and it's an important signal to show other people that you're not alone, that there are people standing with you that share those same views, and that's part of what we do. You should.
This one's going on my SUV. But let me just say two things to conclude. The first thing is pray for your country.
Yeah.
We have to work to defend our country, But I'm someone who believes that we should also specifically pray for America.
We need to.
America needs our prayers. America needs to be defended. The second thing is, my wonderful father-in-law who tried to assassinate Fidel Castro when he came in and literally took everyone's property and took over that island. You know what his words are for us? I'm watching it happen all over again with these riots in the street. It's a small percentage of the people that can literally take over a free country if we allow it to happen. They don't have to have a majority to do it, folks. They can have a very vocal minority that's being pushed by all these elite institutions and people who are scared. So here's the deal.
They're committed. They're committed.
Don't be scared. Be brave. Be bold. Pray for your country. And let's all work together.
Let's be committed on our side, too.
That's right. Thanks for watching another great episode of CPAC Live. If you want to help Rik Mehta, go to his website. We're going to have a chance in some of these races that people don't think usually we would have a chance in. And always listen to Jim McLaughlin, one of President Trump's pollsters, a great board member of the ACU. And listen to him when he tells you national polls are garbage. Fake news polls coming from the fake news, which are oversampling Democrats and undersampling Republicans. Any poll you pick up that has 25% of Republicans as the ceiling, you know it's a garbage poll. As he told you, there's going to be at least a third of the electorate that are going to be Republicans. And what do we know about Republicans? They've never been so unified.
Yep.
Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters.
They're ready to show up.
Thanks for tuning in to CPAC Live. We'll be with you on Wednesday.